Hey everyone, we'll be solving a question called elections from starters 159 in Codechef. So the question says that there are two candidates A and B who are contesting in elections across n states. So a candidate wins an election if he gets more votes than his opponent in a single state. A candidate who wins more than half of the states wins the election. The chef is given X votes to cast in whichever state he desires, and we must output whether chef can help candidate A win the election. Let's understand it better with an example. Let's take a test case from the question itself. So n is equal to 3 and x is equal to 2. It means that there are 3 states and chef has 2 votes to cast. The candidate A has won 2, 2 and 3 in the states correspondingly, and B has won 1, 3, 2. So you can see A has won in the first state, lost in the second state by 2 votes, by 1 vote, but he has to score 2 to win, and then 1 in the third state. So the answer for this will be yes. So the approach to solve this question would be first checking whether the candidate A has won the election without the help of chef, and to see that we'll keep a count which will store the number of states that A has scored more than B, and also have an array C which will have the count of the number of votes that A needs to win in the lost states, and then check if count is greater than n by 2, and if yes, we'll output yes. Otherwise, we'll see whether the chef votes are sufficient enough to win candidate A other states. So we'll understand it better with another example. Let's take the third test case. So we have 3 states and chef has 3 votes. So candidate A has won 3, 1 and 5, and candidate 2 has won 3, 2 and 7. So you can see that candidate A has drawn in the first state and lost in both the other states. So the count will be 0 in this case, and the array C will have 1, 2 and 3 as the number of votes required to win in those states. So we'll sort the array first because we need to use the votes carefully, and we have to use the votes to win in the states that are very close. So 1, 2 and 3. So we have 3 votes, 3 minus 1, that will be left with 2 votes. Count will be added to 1, and then we'll use the other 2 votes to win in the second state, and the count will be 2. And now chef has no more votes, and you can see count is greater than n by 2. So after chef's help, in the third case, the candidate A can win the election. So let's code the same. The input format has test cases. So let's input the test cases first. So let's define test cases and input the test cases and run a loop for all the test cases. So inside each test case, you are defining variables n, x and count. Let's input n and x, the number of states and the number of votes that chef can cast, and then define arrays A and B with n size, and take the input for each. Run the loop for both the arrays and take the input. First, let's update the count and check the first case whether the candidate A has already won the election. So for that, we'll run a loop and check if the elements in array A is greater than the corresponding element in array B, and if it is so, let's update count by 1. else we'll push the difference between the two and then add it by 1, because it is the number of votes required to win the election, to the C array. And if count is greater than n by 2, then let's output yes and break the and continue the test. Let's break the loop and continue to the next test case. If not, let's sort the C array and run through the array and subtract the elements in C from the X votes that the chef has in his pocket. So if let's check if X is greater than 0 first, and then subtract the required votes from X. And update count, because that will help candidate A win a state. Otherwise, if X is not greater than 0, we'll break the loop. And then let's check the count again. If count is greater than n by 2, then we'll output yes, saying candidate A will win the election. Otherwise, there is no other chance that candidate A can win the election, so we'll output no. Let's run the available test cases. Oh, so it says yes in the first case as well. There is some error. Okay. So so we must check X is greater than the elements in C, the array C, because only if X has all the votes required to win a state, the count should be updated. Otherwise, it should not be. And also the count should be initialized to 0 first, because I have only defined count. I had not declared it 0, so that was another error. Now if you submit, yeah, thank you.